Hello! In this video, we will rank the best 10 soundtracks from Gothic 1. The ranking is based on many sources of information. Before making this video, I made deep research to help me optimally put each soundtrack in the right place. Ranking each of them, I mainly took into account popularity, memorability, and how well it reflects the atmosphere of the area, but it was also necessary to use various types of polls, because while some of the choices in this list are clear, most aren't very obvious and they are difficult to define. Please remember that despite the use of various types of information resources, this ranking is still a subjective list, which for the vast majority of people will look different. Before we move on to the ranking, let's begin with the honorable mention. On this list, it will probably be the bravest or even the most controversial decision, and it is not placing the soundtrack from the Swamp Camp in the top 10, and let me explain why. Certainly, many of us highly appreciate the atmosphere in the Swamp Camp, but only some of us realize that there are 3 different soundtracks playing in the camp itself. And these are Swamp Camp, Swamp at Night, and Swamp Temple, which play depending on where you are at the time. According to my sources, Swamp at Night is the most popular soundtrack from the entire camp, which may come as a surprise. The rich atmosphere in the Swamp Camp is largely due to the sounds of the surroundings, because at every step you can hear the croaking of frogs, the sounds of smoking water pipes, joints, etc. The conclusion is that while the location of the Swamp Camp itself has a very distinct atmosphere and it's one of the most iconic places in the entire Gothic series, it does not have the best single soundtrack that is very popular and memorable in itself. And in this video we are looking for the best soundtracks, and that's why those from the Sect Camp are honorably awarded right behind the top 10. Now let's move on to the ranking. Number 10. Orrheap. Orrheap is a soundtrack played inside the cave in the New Camp, which is home to rogues, mercenaries, and the water mages. It is such a versatile soundtrack that it fits both the uncertain mood when we have to deal with rogues for the first time, and in a more sublime atmosphere with higher casts such as water mages and mercenaries serving them. This track is well suited to the varying importance of quests that can be done for Lares, those with focus stones for Saturas, and preparing to take back the Free Mine. It fits the environment well and does not distract attention during many important dialogues that take place in this location. However, this is not the soundtrack that comes to mind first when we think about this game, which is why it opens our list in the last place. Number 9. The Free Mine. This track was originally intended to be played in the Hollow, but the only place it is used in the game is around Kavallorn's hut. Surely, we all have a positive association with its pleasant tones that remind us of wandering between the old and the new camp, and when we specially visited Kavallorn to buy arrows from him. However, due to the small area in which this soundtrack is played, and the fact that we don't have any quests to do in it, we have very few opportunities to hear it during the game. Number 8. Night Watch. This is the first night soundtrack on our list. As the name suggests, it occurs at night only. We can hear it at the old camp after dark in both the outer and inner rings, and in almost the whole colony. The melody line reflects very well the feeling of insecurity that accompanies us during the night exploration of the Mine Valley occupied by various creatures. It is worth noting that this piece corresponds perfectly with the magic barrier in the background. Number 7. The Sleeper's Temple. We can hear this soundtrack as we explore the entire Temple of the Sleeper, from the entrance to the end. From the very beginning, it excellently fits the dark atmosphere of the temple. It accompanies us during duels with previously unseen creatures in the colony, such as undead orcs, temple crawlers, prince demons, and, above all, undead orc shamans. In addition, it perfectly strengthens the feeling that we are in some kind of maze, full of puzzles to solve. Number 6. The Old Mine. This track plays inside both mines located in the colony, but we certainly associate it more with the atmosphere of the one belonging to the old camp. We can mention 4 events during which this soundtrack accompanies us. In the first chapter, visiting Ian in the Old Mine, from whom we have to collect the letter to complete the Test of Faith quest, In the second chapter looking for a nest of minecrawlers, in the fourth chapter while recapturing the free mine with Gorn, and at the end of the fourth chapter during the quests related to Tarok. Compared to most soundtracks from this game, it is not composed on the basis of a melody using a specific instrument, but on the basis of industrial sounds, which however fits the mood of ore mining very well. Number 5. Mine Valley Night. This is the best of the Night soundtracks in our ranking. This track is very similar to the previous Night one, to the Night Watch, but this one also uses harp and lute sounds and is much longer. As in the case of Night Watch, we can hear it at night in almost the entire colony, but to a much lesser extent. Apart from the night time, we can also hear it during the day in the inner ring of the old camp and in the hollow. Despite being slightly less frequent than its predecessor, this soundtrack is rated much higher due to its much richer composition. Number 4. The New Camp. That's the soundtrack that plays in the area of the New Camp, except for the cave, the road to the free mine, and the hollow. This piece is very similar to the free mine. It is based on the same instruments, but the composition is slightly different. That track accompanies us in the game to a much greater extent than the one we can hear in the area of Cavalorn's hut. The melody fits both the atmosphere of Rice Lord's Fields and the tavern run by Silas. Number 3. Title Theme. Our podium opens with the best soundtrack among all the title motifs from the Gothic series. This track is so amazing that it can instantly make us excited when we return to the adventures in the mining colony once again. We can hear it in the game's menu and in the post-game credits. No other title soundtrack in the series emphasizes the identity of the game as much as the one from the first part. Number 2. Mine Valley. This is the most popular soundtrack of nature that accompanies us while exploring the Mine Valley in the daytime. We can hear it practically in the entire colony, except for the camps. It is the example of how a great soundtrack should be made. It sounds great as well, and does not distract from the gameplay. In its accompaniment, discovering all the nooks and crannies under the barrier is a real pleasure. It is worth noting that this is the longest track among all soundtracks from Gothic 1, which lasts as long as 4.5 minutes. Number 1. The Old Camp. This is of course the undisputed number 1 on our list, which I probably don't need to convince anyone to agree. This piece is played in the outer ring of the Old Camp during daylight hours. For most of us, this is the first soundtrack that comes to mind when we think about this game, regardless of which camp or faction is our favorite. This soundtrack makes the Old Camp one of the places in the mining colony to which we come back most willingly, even after completing all the quests there. Certainly, the most memorable moments associated with this track are all conversations with Diego, who from the very beginning treats us like a friend, helping us to get used to life under the barrier. Due to the fact that this is the best soundtrack in our ranking, I will let you enjoy it a bit longer than the others. So that's it from me, and see you in the next episode.